A person gains control over a powerful creature with incredible destructive force, capable of wiping out the entire world. At the beginning of the movie, we see the Emperor, in front of the entire court, entrusting one of his subjects with the safekeeping of the dragon-taming mace. This mace is forged from stardust, stronger than stone or metal. The man is tasked with using it to protect the kingdom, defeat evil, and maintain balance. He thanks the Emperor and accepts the dragon-taming mace. Sometime later, at the Imperial Palace, the Emperor and Empress are dining. The Empress is furious and angrily sweeps the food off the table. His Highness orders all the servants to leave so he can find out what's troubling his wife. Once they are alone, she immediately expresses her displeasure with him giving the mace to Dee. With that mace, she argues, Dee could rebel, leaving the imperial family defenseless. The Emperor responds that Dee almost died saving him and his officials from death. He is no traitor, but the Empress doesn't believe him, suspecting that he's trying to turn Dee against her. The Emperor then reminds her that for her sake, he broke traditions and passed several laws allowing her to rule the country alongside him. That night, secretly from her husband, the Empress goes to meet with the Golden Guard, Yuchi's engine. She orders him to retrieve the mace from Dee. He worries that for losing such an artifact, Dee and his family could be executed, but she promises that no harm will come to them. After hesitating, he agrees. Next, Yuchi introduces her to the people she had asked him to find. They are sorcerers, the most powerful of whom is Huang Tian Chaos. The Empress asks each of them to demonstrate their abilities. Huang Tian displays his mastery of fire. Another man, Phantom Blade, shows his skill with combat blades. The old woman Night Spirit summons sparks out of thin air. And the young man, Flying Smoke, demonstrates telekinesis. However, none of this impresses Yuchi. He dismisses it all as cheap tricks. One of the sorcerers then proposes a wager. If the guard can touch the Empress's shadow with his sword, he will accept any punishment. Yuchi is outraged by such an offer, asking how he dares suggest it. But the Empress agrees. Suddenly, her shadow comes to life and begins to fight Yuchi. Dodging its attacks and trying to get to the sorcerer, Yuchi drives the shadow onto the roof, knocking off its scarf with a shuriken. The sorceress introduces herself as Moon in the Water. The Empress, impressed by what she's seen, declares them her secret clan and orders them to hide and follow Yuchi's instructions. Their mission will be to retrieve the dragon-taming mace. The guard is not thrilled with this company and requests permission to handle the matter alone, but the Empress refuses. Court workers rush into the residence located within the main court grounds, searching for Dee. There's been a strange robbery in the city, and they need to head there immediately. Dee is already aware of the incident and is prepared. Together, they set off to visit the artist, Lei Yu. As soon as Dee leaves his residence, Yuchi hands an old sorceress a map of the detective's house and orders her to find and retrieve the mace. Suddenly, Moon, who had been observing them, notices a mysterious symbol appear on the road, only for it to vanish as quickly as it appeared. Arriving at Lei Yu's workshop, Dee begins a thorough examination of the scene. During the robbery, all of the master's paintings were burned, and his family has disappeared. Studying the traces, Dee mentally reconstructs the events. Meanwhile, the old woman and Moon, using magic to distract the guards, sneak into Dee's home. Continuing his investigation, Dee suspects that everything is staged. There are too many clues. It seems like someone wants to keep them occupied here. Suddenly, one of his assistants finds a painting that has fallen from under a small table. A servant flips the table, raising a cloud of dust as he grabs the canvas. Noticing that the artist's condition has worsened, Dee orders him not to touch the painting, but it's already too late. The dust was also poisoned. Listening closely to his surroundings, Dee realizes that the culprit is on the roof. Giving orders to his men, they pursue the suspect. It's Flying Smoke. Yuchi, who had been watching Dee the entire time, quickly realizes who is responsible and soon finds two sorcerers not far from the workshop. Furious at their actions, he scolds them for acting without permission, but they don't care. Meanwhile, Dee and his team chase the sorcerer. They catch up with him in an alleyway and engage in a fight, but despite their efforts, he manages to escape. Moon and the old sorceress continue searching for the mace. In one of the chests, they finally find it. However, Moon suspects something isn't right. It seems too easy. She's proven correct when, as soon as she grabs the mace, traps are triggered, and the mace crumbles in her hands. A net drops from above, ensnaring the sorcerers, and the palace guards rush toward the house. They storm inside, but the culprits have already vanished without a trace. Yuchi and the sorcerers return to the Empress. She is displeased with their failure and defeat. The lead sorcerer quickly blames the guard, claiming they were following his flawed plan, which led to their failure. He requests permission for the clan to take charge of the theft. Yuchi is outraged by their lies and suggests advising the Emperor to retrieve the mace from Dee. However, the Empress insists that won't work. The last time the dynasty was predicted to fall into turmoil, the Emperor was given advice, but he ignored every piece of it. Late at night, D sits in his home, recalling a visit to the Temple of the Three Cannons. There, a Zen master provided answers to his questions and promised to come to his aid if necessary. His mind then flashes to the artist's death from the poison, triggering a sudden health episode. At that moment, his assistant arrives for an evening visit and rushes to help him. Using acupuncture, he stabilizes D. His illness has returned, likely linked to some deep emotional turmoil affecting his body. D is deeply worried that he may not be able to bear the weight of the responsibility placed on him. Meanwhile, the Empress and Yuchi arrive at the most feared prison in the land. Here, a former minister is imprisoned, the one who had predicted a rebellion at Wu. His advice had been ignored, and after the uprising, the emperor imprisoned him. The minister was stripped of all ranks, tortured, and his face disfigured. He is now known as the Faceless One. After ordering Yuchi to wait by the gates, the Empress heads to the prisoner. Once she's out of sight, Yuchi quietly follows her. Upon seeing the Empress, the prisoner asks why she has come. The last time they met, she promised to clear his and his family's name if she ever became Empress. She has since ascended to that role, but the promise remains unfulfilled. She tells him that she is troubled by the dragon-taming mace. He had advised her to turn to a secret clan, but they are proving too weak. The prisoner then suggests she seize the cord and force D to surrender the mace. Meanwhile, Yuchi, hiding behind a wall, overhears their entire conversation. At the main court, Yuchi arrives with orders to conduct a training exercise. All the court officials gather on the training grounds, watching in horror as D undergoes dangerous trials. First, he climbs a rope while a cauldron of hot coals burns below, and scorpions crawl up the rope behind him. D's chief assistant pleads with Yuchi to stop this torment, but the guard refuses. D successfully climbs to the top, reaching a thin pole, and tries to balance on it. However, he loses his balance and falls from a great height. Yuchi rushes to help, but it's not needed. At the last moment, D grabs onto the rope and calmly lands on his feet. Everyone around is awestruck by his bravery. Afterward, D invites Yuchi to his home, saying he has a gift for him. He presents the guard with a painting that he had created during the time of the Sea Dragon. D mentions he added something new to the painting, writing in the corner. Yuchi reads the inscription aloud but doesn't understand it. D assures him that in time, he will. He hints that the court may one day need the help of the Golden Guards. Assistant Shachuo, walking through the square, recalls a conversation he had with D. D had warned him that they were being watched and that these criminals intended to steal the mace. Suddenly, Shachuo's thoughts are interrupted by voices. They're talking about magicians, and the young man decides to investigate. All around him, the same symbol that Moon had seen on the road earlier hangs on the banners. Entranced by the dancing performers, Shachuo becomes almost hypnotized. However, a sudden slap to the face snaps him out of it. A man, angry and aggressive, grabs him by the arm and pulls him away from the scene. Unbeknownst to him, Moon has been observing him the entire time. Pulling Shachuo aside, the man reveals that he is actually D in disguise. He urgently tells Shachuo that he's being watched and needs to leave immediately. The assistant must return to the judge's house, where he'll find a note with further instructions. D plans to disappear for a while. Moon, who has been observing them, attacks the man, thinking he is D. However, upon closer inspection, she realizes she was wrong. She releases him and begins to ponder where D might be, only to notice that strange figures dressed in black robes and wearing masks are now watching her. In one of the nearby houses, something ominous is happening. A group of people dressed in black robes and masks has gathered, and their leader announces that the sorcerers have proven useless. Since they've been unable to retrieve the dragon-taming mace, it will now be up to them to take it themselves and kill D before the demon, hungry for power, slips from their control. The following day, the Empress arrives at the main court, displaying the dragon-taming mace and informing the officials that someone from the dynasty has been injured by it. She demands that D hand over the mace so they can determine whether the injury was caused by the real artifact or a fake. Shachuo notices the sorcerers and Moon among her entourage, and it's clear that Moon is keeping an eye on him. One of the court assistants informs the Empress that D has left for his homeland due to a family matter, and they don't know where the mace is. The Empress, determined to restore order, declares that she will assume control and demands a tour of the court. As the Empress inspects the court, Shachuo takes the opportunity to slip away, following D's instructions. Moon, however, sticks to him like a shadow. Shachuo runs into the bathhouse, strips down, and starts taking a shower, leaving Moon confused as to what he's planning. Suddenly, he vanishes from sight. Moon approaches to investigate, but then Shachuo reappears, or so she thinks. In reality, it's a different man. Meanwhile, the real Shachuo has slipped out through a side exit and runs into the streets. At the designated house, Shachuo finds D and tells him about the Empress and the assassin trailing him. D instructs him to stay close to Moon, as it may reveal more about their plans. Shachuo suddenly notices a symbol on the table. It's one he's seen before. D explains that it's the mark of the Zhongbu Jia, a clan from India. These sorcerers can control people's minds and influence their actions. Their followers in China helped the late emperor establish the dynasty, and he dubbed them the Warriors of the Wind. However, the emperor eventually grew distrustful of them. and they faded into obscurity, until now. Their symbol has been reappearing in the city, and it seems likely that they've aligned with the Empress. If they manage to turn her against the court, chaos will ensue. Realizing how long Shachuo has been away, Dee urges him to return immediately. Meanwhile, Moon continues her surveillance. Suddenly, she realizes that the man she has been watching isn't Shachuo after all. She leaps down to the bathhouse and sneaks inside. One of the doors opens, and she finds Shachuo standing there, visibly embarrassed and outraged by her intrusion. Yuchi is having lunch with other guards, reflecting on the words written on the painting Dee gave him. Suddenly, he understands the hidden meaning behind Dee's message. He mounts his horse and gallops to the specified location. Upon entering the Temple of the Four Heavenly Kings, he finds the dragon taming mace hidden within one of the statues. As soon as he takes it in his hands, the phantom blade appears, demanding the mace. Yuchi refuses, and a fierce battle ensues. The sorcerer is clearly more powerful, repeatedly throwing Yuchi back, but the guard refuses to give up. Finally, a devastating blow sends Yuchi crashing into a pile of statues, pinning him down. The sorcerer takes advantage of the moment, intent on killing Yuchi. However, in his fury, the sorcerer accidentally strikes the mace with his blade, causing a piece of his weapon to break off. Realizing what happened, Yuchi summons all his strength, frees himself from the statues, grabs the mace, and deflects the next attack. The sorcerer's blades shatter upon contact with the mace, and parts of the weapon pass through the phantom blade's body. Defeated, the sorcerer dies. Yuchi heads to meet the Empress. Along the way, he debates whether or not to hand over the mace. Recalling her previous actions, he realizes she won't keep her promises and will likely execute Dee. When he arrives for the audience, he encounters the sorcerers, and the Empress informs him that she has appointed Huang Tian as the imperial advisor. The Emperor wants to replace Dee, as he believes Dee has failed in his duties. Yuchi tries to argue that this is a mistake, but the Empress dismisses him, telling him to rest and let the new advisor handle the situation. In the Imperial Hall, the Emperor meets with Huang Tian and the sorcerers, who demonstrate their abilities. However, the Emperor is unimpressed, dismissing them as mere tricks. Suddenly, the golden dragon carved on one of the columns comes to life. No one understands what's happening. The sorcerers had no part in this, and it was clearly not part of their plan. The dragon attacks, killing the sorcerers one by one before breaking through the roof and flying away. The rulers are immediately escorted to safety, while Yuchi rushes after the dragon. Racing outside, Yuchi is shocked to find dead guards and a doppelganger, someone disguised as him. The imposter quickly flees before Yuchi can act, and soon, other guards surround him, accusing him of murder. Despite his protests, they arrest him, convinced that he is responsible for the deaths of the Golden Guards. The Emperor, furious, demands answers, and the Empress immediately shifts the blame onto Yuchi, claiming he brought the sorcerers into the palace. The Emperor demands that Yuchi be brought to him, but he is informed that Yuchi has been arrested for killing the guards. Shachuo immediately goes to Dee and tells him about the Golden Dragon and Yuchi. After hearing him out, the detective sends an assistant to the Temple of the Three Cannons. Teacher Sanjan had tried to resist them in India, but he is no longer alive. Therefore, his student might be able to help. Shachuo needs to show him the sign and ask for assistance. Apparently, the secret clan has been planning this for a long time and is now keeping an eye on them. He also asks to gather all of Dee's subordinates, as he wants to split them into 3 groups to distract the sorcerers. The first group will be led by Zhou Jin, who will head to Binzhou to search for Dee, drawing attention away from the main court. They will need to split up to confuse the secret clan, then return and wait for further orders. The second team will be Shachuo himself, who must go to the temple for help. At the Eastern Market, he will change horses and head to Master Yuan Sei. Dee will disguise himself as a guard and, along with Ding Xun and He Zhen, will inspect the palace. Meanwhile, Luna, who has been following the first group, sees a strange fog in one of the alleys. She realizes it's an ambush and demands to know who they are. The people in black masks reveal that they thought the Empress had hired assassins, but they are weak, meaning their time is past. The girl recklessly charges into battle. To her horror, 3 people merge into one hideous creature and attack in response. Struggling to dodge the attacks, she still sustains several serious wounds. However, she manages to escape. Luna reaches the Eastern Market and meets Shachuo there. He saves her and learns that she is also from Telly. At the same time, the Wind Warriors clan has gathered in their secret hideout. They plan to overthrow the descendants of the late emperor. If not for them, this dynasty would not exist. But instead of gratitude, the ruler turned against them and tried to destroy them. They are determined to take revenge on his heirs. Shachuo brings Luna to an inn and tends to her wounds. When she wakes up, she learns that her wounds were poisoned, but he has removed the poison completely. However, she is unhappy with how he did it and tries to hit him, but she is still too weak and fails. Leaving her with medicine, Shachuo goes off to complete his task. On the way, he recalls how he persuaded Luna to take the remedy because he is her friend. Meanwhile, Dee and his team arrive at the palace. After inspecting the scene, the detective concludes that it was a collective illusion and finds the dragon's head on a column under the throne. He then asks to be taken to Yuchi. D tells the guards everything he has learned about the Wind Warriors clan and that the dragon was an illusion. In this clan, all are sorcerers who can manipulate minds and control people. After some thought, the detective concludes that whoever created the dragon and killed the sorcerers was pretending to be a servant. The entire team heads to the ruler's carriages to inspect them. Under one of the carriages, they find the dead body of Huang Tian. The man asks them to confirm if the other two sorcerers are indeed dead and informs Yuchi that the emperor needs to be taken out of the palace. The guard asks why only him, and with horror realizes that the empress is somehow connected to the criminals. Meanwhile, a woman arrives at the prison to see the faceless man. She is furious, his advice didn't work, and she doesn't know what to do next. Suddenly, the cell door opens, and a prisoner attacks the empress. He demands that she justify him and his family and fulfill her promise. At her scream, the emperor and his guards arrive. They see the woman standing alone, as if she is fighting with someone. Calling out to his wife, the emperor brings her to her senses, and she says that the faceless man attacked her. But the man says there was no one there. The person who was imprisoned in that cell died 2 years ago, and the dungeon has been empty since then. Overwhelmed, the woman faints, and the emperor orders her to be taken to the palace immediately. However, D says it's too dangerous there, and they've already prepared a refuge for their majesties. Meanwhile, Shachuo arrives at the Temple of the Three Cannons. He is greeted by a student who says that the master is not receiving visitors at the moment. But when Shachuo shows him the invitation symbol, the student agrees to take him. However, there is a condition: no talking in the temple. Approaching the master, Shachuo tries to get his attention. Suddenly, a huge white monkey drops down from above. Shachuo shows it the Wind Warriors clan symbol, and immediately magic begins to swirl around them. The area fills with thick smoke, and a talking fish emerges from the trees, saying it knows why Shachuo is here. The city is overrun with sorcerers, and D sent him for help. The thirst for power leads to evil, and the fish doesn't want to get involved. Yuan Sei asks Shachuo to leave, and the monkey swiftly carries him out of the temple. D and his guards bring the rulers to the refuge. There, Shachuo finds them and explains that Yuan Sei refused to help but sent a letter. Opening the parchment, D sees that it is the Heart Sutra from India, which will help dispel the sorcery. Noticing needle marks on Shachuo's fingers, D asks about his illness. Back at D's house, Shachuo begins treatment with needles, but the man becomes ill and loses consciousness. Meanwhile, in the secret clan's refuge, a meeting is taking place. The clan leader is informed that the emperor and empress have left the palace, and the courthouse is heavily guarded. After hearing the report, the leader thinks they are hiding in the courthouse, but then an old woman, Spirit, enters and laughs. She says that D is very cunning and wants to protect the ruler. The emperor should be searched for where the detective is. The leader orders them to infiltrate the courthouse, find D with the emperor, and kill the latter. One of the clan's servants brings the leader his weapon, which is impossible to remove once it's secured on the head. As D regains consciousness, he suddenly realizes how to get Yuan Sei's help. The master has been a hermit for 10 years, and the path to enlightenment is to help those who are suffering. The Wind Warriors could bring disaster to all the residents, and they face hell, so he must intervene. He immediately gets up to head to the temple, but Shachuo stops him. He suggests sending someone else, a very fast illusionist. D immediately understands he's talking about the assassin. Shachuo arrives at Luna's place and accuses her of stealing something from the courthouse. He orders a search of her house and to take her into custody. Luna is deeply disappointed, feeling that he no longer considers her a friend. When she opens the door, she sees D with his entourage. D explains that it was his idea and begs for her help. Infuriated by the scene, Luna attacks him with her fists. D distributes the Heart Sutra to all the servants and orders everyone to start reading it. They must stay alert and prepare for battle. In the evening, D examines the dragon-taming mace when suddenly the doors to his home open, and the Empress walks in. She behaves very strangely, and D realizes that this is not the Empress but someone else in her guise. Using the mace's chime, he dispels the false appearance and reveals the old woman's spirit. She transforms into a fireball and escapes. Meanwhile, Luna arrives at the Temple of the Three Cannons but does not find Master Yuan. The next morning, the entire courthouse is shrouded in mist, and all the warriors are ready for battle at their posts. Suddenly, everyone sees a massive, multi-eyed creature and begins to attack it. D realizes its magic and orders everyone to read the sutra. This helps, and the illusion dissipates. But immediately, the secret clan's warriors appear. A fierce battle ensues, and the clan's fighters are highly skilled, making it difficult to hold them off. D orders a diversion and signals for help. The nearby Golden Guards respond immediately and rush to assist at the courthouse. The clan leader and Spirit watch the battle from the roof of a building. The clan leader casts a new illusion. The arriving guards see a terrifying monster and attack it, and the courthouse servants do the same. However, in reality, they end up attacking each other. D intervenes, using the mace's chime to dispel the enchantments. One of the servants notices a fire in one of the buildings, and D sends him and his helpers there. At the smoke-filled building, Spirit catches up with them, magically throwing the men aside and running into the building. She immediately falls into a trap. The emperor is not in the building, and the sorceress is trapped in a cage. Meanwhile, the clan leader talks to D, stating that he wants to destroy the entire dynasty and that the sutra will not help. he immediately orders another attack on the servants and guards. The battle resumes. The clan's warriors manage to capture D, but he manages to throw away the mace, which is caught by Shatuo. The Wind warriors immediately pursue Shatuo. The leader continues to conjure new illusions. At one point, the clan leader manages to seize the mace. It seems all is lost, and they have lost the battle. But suddenly, Master Yuan arrives riding a huge monkey. He successfully grabs the mace, and a new battle begins between him and the clan leader. Master Yuan skillfully deflects all attacks. The leader then resorts to his weapon, which locks onto Yuan's head. However, Yuan remains completely calm, stating that the value of life is infinite and that the leader will deeply regret killing him. The sorcerer laughs and insists that he will kill Yuan anyway. But before he can do so, his weapon ends up on his own head. Yuan persuades the leader to expel the demon of murderous desire, promising that he will be free. Eventually, Yuan succeeds in convincing the leader to let go of his rage, and the weapon on his head unlocks. The illusion on Yuan's head disappears. The battle is over, the dynasty is saved, and the mace is returned to D. Yuchi rushes to the emperor to deliver the good news. After the battle, D visits Empress Wu. She is praying beside a statue and says that her mind was controlled by magic. Now she will read the sutras to protect herself. The detective notices that the statue of Guanyin resembles the empress. Smiling, she explains that it was made at the palace, so the resemblance is purely coincidental. After leaving the palace, D meets Yuchi and says that the faceless man is still alive and the case is not closed. The empress considers herself a bodhisattva, and her ambitions are clear. From now on, the dragon-taming mace, the golden guards, and the main court must be prepared. New battles are approaching. 20 years later, a huge statue of Guanyin was erected in Luoyang. A year later, Empress Wu declares herself the ruler and names her dynasty Zhou. Luna arrives at the Temple of the Three Cannons. By a tree, she finds an arrow and frantically searches for Master Yuan. But instead of him, she encounters 4 wind warriors. She immediately asks them what they did with the master. They reply that they haven't done anything. He told them to stand there. At that moment, a huge white monkey jumps down from above. The girl thinks it might be the master, but the creature loudly beats its chest in a furious display. What would you do in Detective D's place when faced with mystical forces and political intrigue? Would you rely on your intuition or on facts and evidence? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, give a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next videos.